guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well and staying safe today. So I am back to do a sewing video today, and I will be making some cloth face masks. Now I've had several requests for this tutorial, but I've been a little bit hesitant to create it because I know that these are a bit controversial. So before I get into how to make the cloth face mask, let's just talk a little bit about what it is and what it is not. So a cloth face mask is not the same thing as a medical face mask. It does not have the same properties and it will not protect you from getting sick. So let's just say that from the beginning. The main purpose of wearing a cloth face mask is to keep your germs to yourself, keep you from touching your face and potentially spreading infection to other people if you are asymptomatic. The number one thing that we should all be focusing on is staying home and staying away from other people as much as possible. But if you are going into public to do like a grocery pickup or something like that, wearing a cloth face mask is good protection for other people. Many states and cities are now requiring that you wear a non-medical face mask if you go into public. So that is my purpose in creating this tutorial for you guys. If you are in that situation, this is how I have made mine. But please do your own research on this subject. Check what the CDC has to say. I will link to their information down below. Don't get your information from a YouTuber like me. I am just showing you how I'm sewing these. So with all the disclaimers out of the way, here are the two different styles that I'll be creating today. The first one is with elastic. Now I know elastic is a little bit hard to come by right now, so we'll talk about that in the tutorial. This one has a pocket for a filter if you can get access to a filter. That will make this more effective. And I really like the elastic ones. They're more comfortable to wear to me. But if you can't get elastic, I've also made a version with ties. So this is the same concept. It also has nose wire, both of them do. So these are the two styles that we'll be making today. So let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. To get started on this face mask, you will need an 8.5 by 8.5 inch square of fabric for the outside, as well as a 7 by 8.5 inch rectangle for the lining. Keep in mind, if you want to donate your masks, they need to be in 100% cotton fabric and in 2 contrasting fabrics. You'll also want 2 pieces to bind the sides. Mine are 2.5 inches wide, and I cut them a bit long, but they should be about 5 inches long. You'll also need 2 strips of elastic. Mine are 9 inches long and 1/4 inch wide, and you'll also want a twist tie or wire for the nose area. So the first step to put together the face mask is to attach the lining to the outside, and because I am making this one with a filter pocket, I went ahead and finished the long edges with a overlocker, but that is optional. So I am just pinning the bottom edges together with the right sides of the fabric together, and then also pinning the top, leaving a space in the middle. This will be what becomes our filter pocket. So you can see here I will just sew on the outer 2 sides of that side. So I'm just going to stitch this down with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a straight stitch. Once those seams are stitched down, I'm taking my mask to my ironing board and opening those seams out and pressing them down. This will help the pocket to lay really flat. So I'm turning my mask to the right side, and then I'm just going to press it flat, matching the bottom edges together so that the top edge of the outside folds over to the inside. This is what creates that pocket opening. So once that's pressed flat, I'm going to go ahead and add my wire to the top opening of my mask. So I'm taking my little twist tie and just trying to flatten out as much as possible and inserting it into the top of the mask. And then I will pin on either side of this as well as underneath to make sure that it's well contained, and take this to my sewing machine and stitch it down with a straight stitch both below where the wire is as well as on either side to contain it really well. And I'll be sure to do a lot of back stitching on my sewing machine so that this is really secure. Now, as I'm stitching this down, I'm just taking my time and making sure to be really careful that the wire is staying pressed up against the top of this fold and not moving into my stitching line. So next up we want to add some pleats or folds to our mask, and I will be putting 3 pleats on either side of my mask. Mine are 1/2 inch in width, so I'm just using my tape measure to mark the center one. So I'm putting a 1/2 inch pleat here, and then I will also do pleats on either side of this original one. So there will be 3 in total on either side. And then I'll just take this to my sewing machine and stitch it down with a basting stitch. A basting stitch is just a wider stitch, so it's kind of like temporary stitching since we'll secure this more later. So now it's time to make the binding for the sides of the mask, and to do this I am just folding in either end of my binding piece and pressing that flat with my iron, and then also folding in the long ends and folding everything in half so it creates this little casing for the sides. So I'm just putting my mask between the 2 layers and pinning it down, and then I will stitch this down with a straight stitch near the edge of the binding piece so that there is plenty of room for our elastic to go through this in a few minutes. So now all that's left to do is add our elastic to the mask. So I'm just using a safety pin to insert elastic into either side, and then you'll just knot it off and pull the knot through. I know elastic has been in short supply lately. I got mine off of eBay, so maybe check there. There are also alternatives to elastic like hair ties and things like that, so you can look around for something that works for you. But once the elastic is added, this face mask is done. You can see it has the adjustable wire at the top and also the filter pocket, so it's a really simple one to make with a bit of work, and I really like how it turned out. So to make a face mask with ties instead of elastic, you will need the same materials and the same dimensions, but you will add in 2 30-inch pieces of bias tape. You can either buy this or make it, and I will leave a tutorial below for how to make your own bias tape. So I'm just following the exact same method, adding the front to the back of the face mask and stitching it down. This one I'm making it without the filter pocket, so I will just stitch the entire top closed here. If you want to add wire to a mask without a filter pocket, you'll just follow this method of opening up the sides and then placing your wire into the top fold of the fabric, and then just pinning it down and stitching both on the bottom and the sides like we did before. This will just be encased in the top this time instead of on the outer side of the pocket. So I'm following the same method here of adding 1/2 inch pleats to my face mask and basting those down, and once that is done, it is time to add the bias tape for the ties. So now it is time to add the bias tape ties to this face mask, and to do this you will treat your bias tape pretty much how we treated the binding for the first face mask. So I'm just finding the center of my bias tape and then opening it up and matching it to the center of my face mask. I'll place the face mask between the layers of the bias tape and then fold that over and pin it down and stitch all the way from one end of the bias tape to the other end to both secure the bias tape to itself and to the face mask. And then once this is all top stitched down, I am just going to hem all of the ends of my bias tape. There are multiple ways you could finish this off, but this is what I opted to do, and with that, it is all done. Alright guys, so that is going to be it for this tutorial. I really hope you found it helpful if you are needing to know how to sew a face mask. I hope that this was clear and informative. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below, and I will have a lot of information in the description box as well that you guys can check out. I really hope you're all staying well and safe and staying home. I know that I'm very fortunate to be able to do that, so I'm thinking of you if you are having to go out to work or anything like that. Thank you guys so much for watching and for supporting my channel, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!
Let the sun shine on the broken